so much for coming. The book is called Dear Jawaher, and in case you didn't know, Jawaher is actually my 3-year-old daughter. And when I did pass the book to her when it arrived from Amazon, she's 3 years old, she looked at it and she said, "No pictures?" That was the reaction I got from my 3-year-old daughter. Hopefully she will appreciate it when she's a teenager, because it is for teenagers. The book is talking from my perspective as a mom to my 3-year-old, telling her the things that I learned in my lifetime, and I hope to pass on some advice and tips. And of course, I hope that will be the wisdom I pass to her, and I'm sure each one of you has his own story to tell, to pass on to their children too. I speak from the first paragraph, I tell her, who is Jawaher? So it starts with, who is Jawaher? As Arabs, we care so much about our roots. Of course, everybody should be proud of where he or she comes from. Never let that separate you from the rest of the world. You have Saudi, Iraqi, American, Italian, Bahraini, and much more blood running through your veins. So be proud of them. But just remember that we are all born from Adam and Eve. And that is what I hope will be her mentality, because that would always keep us together. This is the first paragraph. I do talk about my experience during the Kuwait invasion. And the paragraph begins, Kuwait has been invaded by Iraq, said the newscaster. I focused harder to understand what he was saying. What did he mean, Kuwait has been invaded by Iraq? Even though I never carried the Kuwaiti nationality, it was always my home. I grew up in Kuwait, I loved Kuwait, and Kuwait was my home. I wanted it back. Overnight, I woke up from being a well-off little career girl with a beautiful home, beautiful family, beautiful career, and a beautiful country, and now suddenly I was a refugee. Hell, I hardly knew what the word meant when I got there. That is the story I talk about with regarding this paragraph is about, this chapter is about education. What I was telling my daughter is basically, throughout the experience of being a refugee, if it wasn't for our education, where we were in Bahrain, and my father turned around and said, what do we do now? And luckily within a month, my sisters and I all got jobs because of our experiences and our education. So that is what I wanted to pass on to my daughter in one of the chapters. The other chapters, I talk about being single, how it was for me for being single, and I talk about friendship, and about motherhood, which was a new experience for me. Obviously, after 2 kids now, I hope I'm a little bit more experienced. And I talk about the sad subject of death, which is something that most people don't want to talk about because it's sad, but my experience with death when my father passed away. And I also talked to her about my father, because she was born before she was born, and he had passed away already, so she never met him, so I talk about him too. With that said, in the end, I do write some of my poetry, and there are some serious ones, and there are some funny ones. And since everybody looks so serious, I'll read one of the funny ones. This is for the girls that are single. It's called The Cynical Princess. Too many movies on love conquering all. When I have kids, they can watch Hannibal. Cinderella, a fairy tale, no prince nor ball, plenty of lavish tears and a great steep fall. Bedtime stories should be Winnie the Pooh. They ought to be women are from Venus and men from Timbuktu. Mind you, my kids can have their dreams, but only on how to be a millionaire schemes. None of that Prince Charming mumbo jumbo, just silly movies like Bambi and Dumbo. One looks for their mother and the other wants to fly, perfect to share with kids and sure to make them cry. No more stories about Tarzan and Jane. Why let them dream when it's all about pain? So spare the kids the agony in their little heads and stick to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, for they both end up dead. Again, I want to thank all of you for coming, and again, I would like to say this is a book that I was able to write because for the past 4 years, after working for 20 years, I was able to sit at home and do what I've always wanted to do, which is write a book. And each one of you has his own stories, and I'm sure you will all be able to relate to some of the stories and have your own stories too. So I encourage everybody to write to their children. Thank you all, and please enjoy the refreshments.
Now that she finished, I will tell you about my job. Please have some help.